We are here live at DigiMarcon and Texpo Boston, New England, and it is my pleasure to introduce Bob Cargill as one of our special guests. He spoke yesterday at the DigiMarcon conference, and he has this cool new book called 20 Jobs, 20 Lessons. So he's very accomplished. He's a professor, but he's also a former president of the AMA Boston, and he's a social media consultant, copyright content creator, public speaker, copywriter. He does all the hats. So it is my pleasure to introduce him. Bob, we'd like to hear a little about your background and what inspired you to make this book.
Jedediah, thanks so much for the honor to be here today and yesterday to speak before almost 100 people or about 100 people. That was an honor. You asked me about my book, 20 Jobs, 20 Lessons. Well, it was published in 2022, so 3 years now have gone by, but I am still sharing it with people. People are still scooping it up. What inspired me was I always wanted to be a writer, even though I was a copywriter in the marketing and advertising fields. I always wanted to write a book, and ever since I was a young kid, knee high to a grasshopper. So I left the corporate world in 2017. I stopped working 9 to 5, and it was more like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Right.
and had a few more hours in my day, and I just chronicled my journey from beginning to where I am today. And I also used my blog too for to document the evolution of social media, if you will, which I started in 2004.
Yes, we were talking a little bit, and I noticed during his presentation he was talking about how he has always promoted social media, even in the early eons of it, when before it was widely accepted that social media is the place to be and where you want to be. And so if you could talk a little about that, I kind of think of you as maybe even though you don't have like millions of followers in the sense of some other influencers, you really are an influencer because you were on the cutting edge. You were one of the first people to really promote, hey, this is where you want to be. You want to use social. You want to be actively involved. And many of these companies, even when they were first starting, like in their iterations of them.
I started blogging officially in 2004, but I dabbled in it probably around 2000. I had quite anonymous blog out there, which was how blogs started, by the way. They were more personal. They were journals, web log. That's what blog stands for. So they were diaries, if you will. And then business caught on, and people like me caught on. And again, yes, there were a lot of big names. I was always on the periphery of that circle, those big names. I've spoken at a lot of conferences. Hey, there's another reason I wanted to write the book. I wanted to document my journey, and I'm proud of my journey. And I felt my journey would be a benefit to a lot of young people entering the field, and just something that social media has changed how we communicate. It's not even a question. Someone like yourself, Jedediah, you've grown up with it. You're a digital native, but so it's instinctive to you and Jean-Luc out there in the audience. It's instinctive. It's natural for you. But think of people my age. Half my career was before the internet. When the internet hit, it changed everything. It turned everything upside down. I saw it as an opportunity. I saw it as, this is going to be a lot of fun.
See, I love that. Bob has an eye for seeing what the future is going to look like and jumping on it today, here and now. And so social media is a huge part of that. And I love that term that you use to describe, say that term again. Just for
digital natives.
Yes, digital native, right. Because some of us grew up in this era of like, cell phones and AI and all this stuff. And, so it's interesting to think. And that was a conversation we were talking about earlier. I'm a little bit worried for future generations because I think that right now there's sort of a split. And you have people that are very like, we're going to use AI for everything. And you have people who are like, oh, I don't want anything to do with AI. And then I think the real secret's going to be the people that can use both. Like, how to turn your phone off and to actually write and to read, but at the same time, and critically think, how to use the software to really go beyond what a single human could do. And I would just love to get your thoughts on this as a professor and what you're seeing in students and in the world right now and where we're headed.
You're spot on, Jedediah. There's many different ways of saying what you just said, but I like how you said it. You can't forget the human element. It is artificial intelligence, AI, and there's actual intelligence, and that's us.
Yes.
And our actual intelligence can't be superseded, if you will, by artificial intelligence. So we have to not just keep up with it, but stay ahead of it. So my encouragement to my students and anyone within earshot, as I say, is to embrace it and partner with it, learn it, but realize you have to, like I say, trumpet, if you will, in terms of the human side of business. So you need to be your very best self AI can help with that, but then you take extra time that it has given you to be even better, maybe quicker, maybe different, maybe more unique, but your authentic self, your genuine self, and energy does help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So that's something else I love about Bob is he's high energy, but he's also very humble and he's very approachable. He loves chatting with people. And what I found getting to know him a little bit more over the last couple of days too is that when you use authenticity as a phrase, some people kind of use it as a buzzword, but he really lives it and preaches it. In fact, in his book, he talks about the highs and the lows. And as a filmmaker and a screenwriter myself, I say that's what makes a really good script. It's not just all one or the other. You know, someone is always negative all the time. No one wants to be around them. And if someone is always a little too happy and too, you know, it's like corporations, they only show the good side and it's only it feels fake. It just doesn't feel relatable because all of us have struggles, the things we go through. Every business has a story about how it came to be, how it overcame obstacles. So I love that you have put your story out there for the world to see. And I'd love it if you could give us just a few tidbits about some of your highs and lows over the course of your career to get people interested in what you're offering here.
Absolutely, Jedediah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, I just wanted about storytelling because I talked about it yesterday in my presentation here yesterday, and I even showed a video with Barbara, my wife, and I talking about storytelling, and she's a preschool teacher. I know I'm not answering your question just yet, but I wanted to jump on that. And what you say is true. Is there's dialogue. There might be conflict. There's highs and lows. There's dialogue. If I didn't already say that. And my wife tells great stories to her kids and engages her kids. Businesses need to do the same thing in their marketing, in their advertising, on social media. And I think now I'll get to answering your question. Social captured my attention because it is authentic. It's the social and social media. It has given me a chance, an opportunity to share with the world. Anybody could be a publisher. Anybody, the book, I suppose that's more traditional, but on social, I share the highs and the lows of my journey. Many highs, many lows during the course of my journey. That's why it's called 20 jobs. If it was all highs, it would be probably one job, one lesson. I made $1 billion. I'm CEO.
Right.
It was an up and down journey. Maybe be more specific if you can. Ask me that question again, and I want to hear exactly what you want.
So let's just maybe cue us in as the audience on. You can even pick one specific moment, like one specific high that really stands out to you. Like this was a really high point in your life, and then a moment that stands out as, wow, this was really tough, but I made it through. Like a low point that you conquered.
Gotcha. Yeah. The reason I wanted you to repeat the question is I almost forgot it because I get carried away on that.
Okay, you're
other,
doing the weave. That
other tangent. Yeah, many, my book starts out. It's funny you asked that. And by the way, this is for you, Jedediah.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Is your
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy reading it. I appreciate you talking to me about it, giving me the opportunity to talk about it. Yeah. So highs, I start out the book with a list, a litany, I don't know, page 4, 5, 6, and not bragging at all because it after that, it's a series of ups and downs and a lot of downs. But I wanted to start off with saying, hey, I've had a great career. I'm still having a great career. But it didn't come without a lot of lessons learned the hard way. Being president of AMA Boston for 4 years, American Marketing Association Boston, definitely a high. I was president of the New England Direct Marketing Association in 1999, 2000, a high. I had my own business for 7 years, 1990 to 97, before the internet, right around when the internet was coming along. And that's why my book says From Junk Mail to Social Media, because I literally have a newspaper article hanging up at my house, local newspaper said I was the junk mail king of Metro West. So it's ironic. So that was a high. I took that as a compliment. But lows, hey, again, that's why I joke, but it's true, 20 jobs. I mean, they all didn't work out, if you will, for one reason or another. And also, I have always, frankly, struggled with, believe it or not, as you say, I don't know if you used the word humble or something like that, but I grew up as a young person to be modest and not to speak up very loudly and not necessarily disagree with others. So when I entered the business world, it was really tough for me. And I wasn't that good at advocating for myself verbally. And so again, that would be a low, a downer, if you will, intermittently, a common thread throughout the course of my career. So struggling with defending myself, advocating for myself, and fortunately, I think over time, and I will say thanks to having my own business, thanks to Toastmasters, a public speaking group, I'd say midway through my career, around the emergence of the internet, that's when things really started to take off for me.
Yes, definitely, and I relate to that a little bit too. I'm pretty lucky because I got picked into acting very, very young. So when I was like 5 years old, I was invited. There was this like group assembly of all the district, all the schools, and they were doing this promotion thing for their theater plays, and they wanted people to try out and audition for it. So I got picked up out of the audience, and they just dragged me on stage. It was like no option. It was like, oh yeah, he's Tiny Tim. He's going to play Tiny Tim. So they gave me these lines and these crutches, and I just had braces. So I was like hard to talk and all this stuff. And I went up on stage, did my little bit, and then I got a standing ovation. And I was like 5 years old. So it was. I always joke with people like I got stage fright kicked out of me really young, so I don't have that problem. But I know some people. I understand a little bit because I did come from a culture and a background where my family, they're not that prominent on social. In fact, I even had like some relatives at one point. They're like, "Why are you posting on social? Like, shouldn't you be doing real work?" They just don't have the modern mindset, And so I understand. Like I've had some sales job, but people before they do sales job, they don't really understand what it means to really sell yourself and to like be confident in yourself and be present in that. And that's something I loved about acting as well, because I found for me, at least doing acting, it was extremely it was very like freeing. It's like you got to be fully present in yourself and your emotions or the emotions of the character you're playing, and it has to be fully felt. You can't hold anything back. It's like you're releasing restraints, really. So it's like therapy in a way.
Yeah.
So I relate to a lot of your story and what you're saying, and about how you became like a speaker over time and going through all these things and being able to be up on the stage and be open and authentic. And we really appreciate that here at DigiMarcon. And I have to say, Bob also reminds me of my favorite professors growing up that had that energy and that excitement. He's one of those guys that you want to watch and you actually remember and you learn from them because they're engaging and they want you to succeed. And I've seen him on the stage really promote that he really cares about his audience and he empathizes with them and wants them to overcome their obstacles and to see that through. So, yeah,
that would be. Thank you, Jedediah. This would be a high, by the way, in my career. Talking with you today, and speaking yesterday here at DigiMarcon. I would say I say I was brought up to be humble and frankly, I feel a little bit meek, as a young person, that was considered a good quality. And I think it still is. It's good to not necessarily have to be center of attention all the time. But I learned over time that that's how success would maybe come a little quicker, a little easier if I did speak up a little more and standing out when I had my own business, standing out when I took Toastmasters and learned how to speak and act, I guess, because Toastmasters teaches you how to lead in front of a group, be on stage like I was yesterday. It could be equated to acting a little bit.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah. So you have that. You natural at 5 years old, you learned, hey, I get that talent. That is awesome. That good for you. Take that and run with it. And I know you are.
Yeah.
And because that's a big key to success. If you can speak in front of a group, if you are confident, believe in yourself, if that's why I tell my students, they are rock stars.
Yes.
Because I want them to feel good about themselves. When I was young, I didn't necessarily have that self-esteem that you need in order to succeed at the highest possible level.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they're going through struggles, they don't realize that there's a lot of other people going through the same struggle, and they want to hear from you, and they want to understand how you overcame that. That's huge. In fact, I think a lot of the stories that are authentic and real are exactly that. Hey, there's this conflict that was overcome. But really, anybody who studied screenwriting, like that's it. It's like you have an inciting incident, and then there's some sort of conflict that has to be overcome. If there's no conflict, there's no story. So all of us have a story, and you'd be surprised at how many people actually want to hear and be a part in that if you tell it in the right way. And in the right way, a lot of that is going to be, knowing how to present yourself, but still with that authenticity and that dose of humility. So it's not like egocentric, and yet still putting yourself out there for the world to see. And that's another reason why you should get his great book.
Thank you. And follow me on social. And I'm not saying that to build my audience as much as I want to help people. I really want to help people and connect. And I do love people. And that was another quality I think I was blessed with growing up. I will say thanks to my mom and dad. And by the way, credit to my mom and dad, big credit. There's an article, a blog post that I share in my book, 20 Jobs, 20 Lessons. And it's 10 things I learned about social media from my parents. They actually taught me nothing about social media. I learned social media, but they taught me qualities and lessons that apply to being a influencer or someone people ideally look up to. That's what I aspire to be, a good role model. My parents were my role models, and trying to emulate them, I do on social media what they did with me growing up there. I get to the point. I try to set good examples. I try to encourage people. I try to make people feel good about themselves. I try to tell people communication skills are important. Sharing is important. What you were saying, it's cathartic for you, so it helps you, and everyone can relate because everyone's got something, if not many things, going on behind the scenes.
Yes, definitely. Well, we just want to thank Bob so much for being here and for speaking with us at DigiMarCon yesterday and today. And again, his book is titled 20 Jobs, 20 Lessons, A Long, Strange Career in Marketing from Junk Mail to Social Media. I highly recommend you check him out. And again, he's awesome. I mean, I really do think of him as like some of my favorite professors growing up that I really remembered and learned from and felt encouraged after coming after. So what a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for joining us here at DigiMarCon Tech